I'm thinking now, my mind is spinning. We'll go to the place. We should look up places renowned for time slips.
Are we going to Liverpool?
Well, just any place renowned for time slips.
Yeah.
But I just know I'll be standing there like, come on. Almost trying to make something happen.
Trying to squeeze a time slip out.
Imagine if we had one though. I feel like even though we've read about it, I would be so shit up.
Yeah, it would really mess me up, to be fair.
If we both had one at the same time and we went back in time, I would just look at you like, Ellen, what's happening? Ellen, what is this?
It's happening! Be that thing when it's like, everyone stay calm! Hi everyone, welcome to episode 17 of Spooky and Kooky.
If you like anything horror, paranormal, conspiracy, then you're in the right place. If you're new here, welcome. And if you're coming back, thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope you enjoy the episode.
Yeah.
So first off, I've got a little story to kind of ease us in, and then I'll explain what the episode's about if you haven't already guessed from the title. In Liverpool, this story is. So an off-duty policeman, Frank, was shopping with his wife on Saturday afternoon in 1996 in Liverpool city centre. They split up to go into different shops, his wife going to Dylan's bookstore and Frank going to a record shop. Frank had finished in his shop, so began to cross the road to meet his wife when a horn beeped at him. When he looked up at the van, it appeared to be a 1950s box van with Kaplan's written on it, which Frank was unfamiliar with that brand. Being startled by the horn, but perhaps not thinking anything was wrong at this point, Frank realised he was looking down at the ground and standing in the middle of the road, so he hurried to the other side. When he looked up in the direction of Dylan's bookstore, he did not see it, but instead saw an old-fashioned sign with Crips across the front of the store, and he could see Crips sold handbags and shoes for women. Frank was confused and began to look around, possibly thinking he had walked in the wrong direction, and although unlikely, somehow got turned around somewhere in the short journey across the road. He noticed that people around him were all dressed in 1940s fashion, and the street itself was not the same as he was familiar with. As he was realising that something was going on, he saw a young woman in her 20s who was carrying a handbag with a modern-day brand on. They smiled at each other when she was entering the Crip store, so he followed her inside, feeling a sense of familiarity from her. As he entered the shop, in a flash, the shoes and handbags changed to books and the interior of Dylan's bookshop restored in his vision. The young woman in her 20s was still inside, so Frank approached her and asked her questions to see if she had seen what he had seen. And strangely enough, she too believed she was entering a shop called Crips that was selling shoes and handbags. Crips and Kaplan's, Frank would later find out, were brands that were about in 1950s. So the question is, did the Kaplan's van driver witness a man in the middle of the road acting strange? Did the people outside Kaplan's notice a man in clothing they did not recognise? We will never know as we don't have any reports of this, but was Frank a ghostly man in a different time, or did Frank see a scene playing out from another time? Stories like Frank's are all too familiar, and the nature of time is one of the biggest mysteries in science, and we simply do not understand what time is and how it works. We know it exists because we physically witness us moving and things moving around us, but there are a lot of mysteries that remain. Time does not always behave how we would expect and behave differently depending on the circumstances. For example, clocks on satellites and aeroplanes behave differently than clocks here on Earth. Einstein, over 100 years ago, stated that time and space are inextricably linked together, and the universe itself has a time limit, and nothing can move faster than this limit, which is the speed of light, 186 miles an hour. However, what about Frank's story? How do we explain this? If it was just Frank, maybe this would be due to a hoax or false claims. It could have been a vision he had. We could somehow rationally explain it away. But it's not just Frank. The internet is filled with stories of people insistently believing they had an experience of where they have travelled through time. And today we are going to tell you some of these stories. Theories exist of how this could be possible, such as the multiverse theory, theories that people are seeing ghosts from the past in present time, or memories of a place replaying in front of people's eyes. However, none of these are proven facts and are just theories. The one fact about time that seems to remain proven is what we don't know about time far outweighs what we do know about time.
I love that. And the multiverse, we talked about that in the parallel universe.
Yeah, so it's all linked.
Throwback.
And obviously from that intro, we're going to be talking about time slips today. And like I said, like so many people on the internet have had these experiences where they've either travelled backwards in time or forwards in time.
Yeah.
That can't be explained.
And what I like about most of these stories is it's multiple people experiencing these, which just gives it a little bit more weight to just one person.
Yeah,
so.
And they all seem to see the same thing. So it's definitely a mystery that's worth looking into. But also I think it's quite appropriate that we're doing time slips today because I feel like I'm in a bit of a time slip myself at the minute because in the next coming week, which by the time this episode is out it would have been and gone, but it's mine and Ellen's birthdays and we'll be turning 29. So 1 minute I'm 18 and now I'm 29 and I don't know how that happened.
It should be illegal. I don't feel like I should be able to be this age with like I shouldn't have these responsibilities. Yeah. I still look for an adult in a crisis. I can't be that adult. I can't.
We've only got 1 more year and then it's like proper adult. But I keep thinking back to, I can't remember what film it is. I think it's called 13 Going on 30. I think that's the title and I keep just repeating 30, flirty and thriving. That's what I'm repeating in my brain. Like it will be the best years of my life.
Saturn Return. Everyone says it's the best. Yes. It's the best time.
I had a book on that.
Yeah. I'm waiting for it.
Yeah, I'm waiting for it to happen. I do feel like my frontal lobe has developed now. I've noticed some changes in myself and I felt like my frontal lobe has fully developed finally by the age of 28. But yeah, we're doing time slips today and I just felt it was appropriate because how on earth did we get here?
I don't know. I feel like I really did wake up and I was 16 and now I'm not.
I keep checking with people like, am I 28 or 29 this week? Hoping they'll say 28 and they all say 29 and I'm like, God damn it.
And I used to love just blaming any work incompetence on the fact that I was a baby.
Yeah.
And that's getting wearing now. I feel like I can't use that.
I don't know about you, but do you get like almost... I don't know what the word is, but territorial over that title of being the youngest in the office.
Yes.
And you've got people now who are younger and you think, I'm the baby of this office.
Yeah. I'm reluctantly passing you the baton.
And when they say things, I'm like, I don't know what that means. Or like...
Yeah, that's the worst.
I'm too old for this.
And when I see a TikTok and they ask people, kids these days, what they consider old, and they're like, anyone born before 2000, and I'm like,
that's insulting. They've actually insulted me.
I just scroll past like, what do they know?
But yeah, we are born 2 days apart, so we're both Pisces. Wish us happy birthday if you want to down in the comments, even though this would have passed by the time this comes out, but
I still want to see it.
Anyway. Without further ado, we'll actually talk about some stories of some real time slips because unfortunately, as much as I would like to believe it, it hasn't just been from 18 to 29. There has been time in between.
Okay, so my first story is about Carl Gustav Jung. So, Carl Gustav Jung, a Swiss psychiatrist and psychoanalyst, was an early supporter of Sigmund Freud, the founding father of psychoanalysis. Yeah. He's a bit like Marmite, old Freud.
No Freud.
Yeah, we've all heard of his theories.
It's a name that's out there. And that's all I can really say on it.
Sharing Freud's fascination with the unconsciousness, Jung eventually revolutionised the psychiatrist's perspective on humanity's relationship with time and the world, which is why I love that he himself experienced a time slip. So Jung visits Ravenna's Baptistery of Neon in 1913, and that's in Italy, and it was the city that once served as the capital of the Western Roman Empire before its collapse in 476.
So a lot of history.
Yeah. During this visit, Jung experienced a strange sensation while exploring the tomb of Galla Placidia. I hope I'm saying that correctly. A Roman princess born in 4th century AD. Placidia is the daughter of a Roman emperor who had a significant political presence in Roman history. This initial encounter left a deep impression on Young, who described the feeling of an inexplicable connection to the tomb. Nearly 2 decades later, in the early 1930s, Young returned to Ravenna, this time accompanied by a female acquaintance. Recalling this second visit in this semi-autobiographical book, Memories, Dreams and Reflections, Young noted that he and his companion went directly from Galla Placidia's tomb, where he once again experienced the same strange feeling, to the Baptistery of Neon, the city's oldest surviving religious structure. Inside the baptistery, Young described being struck by a mild blue light that filled the room. However, what captivated him most were 4 great mosaic frescoes of incredible beauty that seemed to replace the windows he recalled from his 1913 visit. He provided detailed descriptions of these mosaics. So this is a little segment from his book. The mosaic on the south side represented the baptism of Jordan. The second picture on the north was a passage from the children of Israel through the Red Sea. The third on the east soon faded from my memory. The 4th mosaic on the west side of the baptistery was the most impressive of all. We looked at this one last. It represented Christ holding out his hand to Peter, who was sinking beneath the waves. We stopped in front of this mosaic for at least 20 minutes and discussed the original ritual of baptism, especially the curious archaic conception of its initial connection with the real peril of death. He got real deep. I retained the most distinct memory of the mosaic of Peter sinking, and to this day I can see every detail before my eyes. The blue of the sea, the individual chips of the mosaic, the inscribed scrolls preceding the mouths of Peter and Christ, which I attempted to decipher. The impact of the mosaics was profound. Even years later, Young claimed he could see every detail before his eyes. Determined to preserve their beauty, he decided to purchase photographs of the mosaics. Though he initially postponed the task due to time constraints, he later asked an acquaintance travelling to Ravenna to acquire the images on his behalf. Yet, to Young's astonishment, his acquaintance reported that not only were the photographs unavailable, but the mosaics Young had vividly described did not exist. Shaken, Young wrote that the experience remained among one of the most curious events of his life. He suggested that the unconscious mind might have merged with that of Galla Placidia, leading him to envision something entirely different on the baptistery's actual walls. Interestingly, Young's female companion also remembered seeing the mosaics, which Young believed made the experience more than a personal unconscious projection. Instead, it became a shared vision. They can't deny that when that blue light enveloped the pair in the baptistery, something happened. And did Young have a deep connection to Galla Placidia, which transported him and his companion into the world, enabling them to momentarily step back in time?
You can really tell he's a psychoanalyst.
He's dropping those words.
Yeah.
And they found out that these mosaics were actually destroyed in a fire. So how could he describe them so vividly when they didn't exist?
Do you know, that's a feature of lots of them, where they have such a vivid experience and such a vivid memory. And people gave a lot of weight to Frank in the story that I told, because he was a policeman, so they said he's trained to be observant and stuff.
Yeah.
But actually a lot of other people, like him, Gustav,
yeah,
he explains it so vividly, and you can't do that unless you've actually seen something. You can't make that up in your mind's eye, and if the story is told the same over years and he describes it the same.
And the fact that it actually, when he looked into it and did research into it, these mosaics did exist.
And someone else saw it.
Yeah, and what was the blue light?
Yeah, and I always think it's weird with religious things, because it's like, oh.
Yeah, it's just odd that he had that connection to the Roman priestess, because the time that it matched the time period when she was alive was when those mosaics would have been there. So it's like, whoa. I don't
Well,
know.
they do say sometimes it's, like I said, like memories of an event playing out in front of your eyes.
Yeah.
And I actually went on a tour of London, of haunted areas, and I can't remember the story exactly, but I think it was a king or something, someone prestigious, had a event where he looked outside into his courtyard of the palace and there was a sacrifice going on. Like a
Imagine.
witch's sacrifice. He remembered it so vividly, but all of a sudden it disappeared. And then later it's found out that used to happen there because it's been documented over years that he had this experience, and then people found out,
Wow.
oh, that was a place that happened. So it was like a memory playing out in front of his eyes.
Oh, I just want to know what it is, because there's people that
Yeah.
say that ghosts don't exist, that it's just one of those, like a loop of, like it becomes a time loop.
Yeah.
Is
But
that
still,
the
how
case?
does it happen?
Yeah, how does that happen?
And
I
why
need
does
to
it
know
only
these
happen
things.
for a minute?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or, like, you know, as not a long period of time.
And maybe just that once. Why isn't it a recurring thing
Yeah.
and multiple people can go there and have the same experience? It just happens that one time.
It's bizarre.
Little glitch in the matrix.
I've got a story for you, which I think you're really going to enjoy. It's a story of someone supposedly going to the future, from what I take of it. But it's
Okay.
also got, I don't know if I would call it a twist, but there's just something weird at the end that happens. So stay tuned.
Strap in.
So it's a Reddit story from Swell Peace McCoy. Right, so it says, don't know if this is the right place, but I have a creepy story about a time slip. Saturday morning, I'm at home in my front room watching Soccer AM. It's a normal day, I'm not hungover or ill in any way, but as I was watching TV, I suddenly get the worst headache I have ever experienced. It was literally crippling. I felt like I couldn't even move. I remember thinking to myself, just close your eyes and wait for it to go away. So I do. Next thing I know, I wake up in bed. I remember it clear as day. I was not dreaming, I was now wide awake. Still a little headachy, but feeling much better. I assume that I must have gone upstairs, probably with my parents' help, and slept it off. But that's when things started to get strange. Although I was wide awake, I immediately realised that I was not in my bedroom. In fact, I didn't even recognise the house. Now again, I would like to stress that I was not dreaming. This was absolutely real. At least it felt real. And I had no memory of how I ended up in this room. So there I am, collecting my thoughts, and I realise that I can hear noise coming from downstairs. In fact, it sounds quite lively. I can hear music and laughter and talking. But I'm really worried because I don't recognise the room that I'm in, and in any case, I decided that staying in the room would do me no good, so I ventured out. I walked out onto a hallway, and it was immediately obvious that there was some kind of get-together going on in this house. At this point, I still don't recognise where I was, but it did feel familiar. Especially because I recognised most of the people stood in the hallway. The first person I came across was my uncle. I remember him asking me if I was feeling better. This was starting to make sense, but I was worried that maybe I was suffering from some kind of memory problem. So I played along like I knew what was happening. Yeah, I replied, much better, you okay? I then proceeded to have a good chat with him about work, home, the usual. Anyway, as I'm leaving him, he says to me, and I will never forget this, thanks again for having us round tonight, really enjoying it. Now, this is really weird, and at this point, I'm starting to suspect some kind of prank or trick. I was definitely not dreaming, it was all real. I can picture the house clear as day, laminate flooring, an old-fashioned staircase, and a really nice kitchen. So I move through this party, recognising maybe 80% of the people, but there's this one girl who is staring at me, and I don't have a clue who she is. This is when I'm really beginning to get suspicious, as something is definitely not right. Even the people I recognise just seem different. Okay, now, here's where it all kicks off. I guarantee you're not going to believe the next paragraph, but I swear down that this happened.
Please say he looked in the mirror.
No.
I was hoping he'd be older or something.
So, I talked to a couple more people I recognise and eventually made my way to the entryway of the kitchen. Next to the door to the kitchen, there is a small chest of drawers with a newspaper on the top. I picked up the newspaper for one reason, not a headline or picture or anything else, the date. Saturday, 31st of March, 2018. Now, please, if anyone could explain this, I would appreciate it. My immediate thought was that it must be a prank. I was so scared when I read the date that I just stared at it for what felt like minutes. And remember the date, because he says what date we're in, like he's currently in. So remember 2018.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay. So I didn't even read the headline. I remember it's something to do with trains. I remember looking at one of my friends nearby to ask them when a hand lands on my shoulder. It's a girl who had been staring at me. She pulls me into the kitchen and closes the door behind us. This girl says that she's not sure if I'm playing a trick on her, but about an hour ago I had told her that I'd had a headache and that when I returned I needed her to give me a note. So she hands it to me. She tells me if this is a joke, it's not very funny or believable. Then she walks out of the kitchen. Now I'm not going to relate everything that was on this note because some of it was very personal, boring. Basically, it was a list of about 5 pieces of advice. I will share the first and the last. The first piece of advice was warning me of a message I received from an ex. It said to completely ignore the text, as if I replied anything, it would lead to trouble. There were then 3 other pieces of advice that were very personal, and again, he doesn't say what they were. The final thing simply said, stop panicking, in about 10 minutes you'll be wondering if any of this even happened. I read that piece of paper about 100 times and then stuffed it into my pocket. I then remember getting the same headache again as I left the kitchen and went back up to the bedroom. The last thing that I remember was seeing a picture next to the bed of me and the strange blonde girl from downstairs on some beach that I didn't recognise. Next thing I know, I'm stood in the kitchen of the actual house where I live now in 2010, talking to my mother. I had no idea what about, but I get the impression that we were mid-conversation. I promptly proceeded to write as much down as what happened as I could before I forgot anything. That's what I've based this post on. I do not know what this experience was, but it was not a dream. I think it must have been a hallucination, because I'm given to understand that hallucinations feel completely real. My only doubt is that there was no reason for me to hallucinate. I was not ill, drunk, on drugs, or tired, or anything. The weirdest thing, 2 days later, I got an out of the blue text from my ex. Weird. And then what I find really weird is there's an edit to the post from the original poster underneath.
Right.
And I don't know when the edit was put on from when he actually posted the post. But he said, edit, if you want to see the girl, we were both subjects of a BBC TV show the other week. Look for Don't Tell the Bride, Season 6, Episode 8, Anthony and Holly. What I'm guessing... And it's really annoying because we have no proof that he hasn't just plucked something out the air and been like, oh, I'll just say it, because his username, it's anonymous.
Yeah, you can't
tell if it's him or not. But what I'm guessing from the story is that this guy had a vision of his life in 2018 where he's obviously met this beautiful blonde girl.
Yeah.
They have a beautiful home and they're having a gathering. And she's telling him, don't respond to this message from your ex and other things that we don't know about. This is your future. And then he ignores the message from his ex, they meet, and for whatever reason, they end up on Don't Tell the Bride. What? So he's saying, if you want to see who this girl is,
got my phone.
if you want to see who this girl is, she's on Don't Tell the Bride, Season 6, Episode 8.
Shook my phone fell on the floor.
So...
Did you looked? Yeah.
I went to find the episode because I'm committed to this podcast. So I was like,
you have to
I'm
going
to watch the episode to see if there's anything in there. Unfortunately, the episode isn't available anymore to watch. However, I have a picture of them two. So supposedly this is them. See, she's blonde. Yeah. Who knows? But then in the little bio, obviously I don't think they would have said anything about that experience on Don't Tell the Bride. I don't think it's something that comes up, whether it did or not. But what I found in the bio was quite, there's a little line in there, so I'll just read the bio. It says, fashion-conscious Holly Billington gives full control of her wedding to her logical space cadet beau, Anthony Richardson. Within months of meeting, these star-crossed lovers knew that their future together was written in the stars. And that just kind of, I was like, is that a hint? Is that, or is that just something you say?
Yeah. Imagine you meet a guy and then later on he just drops on you. He's like, I knew that we were going to meet. Like, I knew I'd seen it before because I travelled to the future and I knew I'd meet you. And you'd be like...
Not gonna lie, I don't think I would have that reaction. I would think it's like some sort of cheesy line that would probably give me the ick. Like, yeah, like, did you fall from heaven? Is heaven missing an
Does
angel?
your head hurt?
Yeah, that's it. Oh, I messed up the punchline. No one's ever said that to me, thank God. But yeah, I'm assuming everyone knows what Don't Tell the Bride is, because obviously it's quite a popular show in the UK, and I think loads of people have watched it. So for anyone that doesn't know, Don't Tell the Bride is like a show where the bride gives up full control of her wedding to her husband, and the husbands are usually clueless, and it all seems to follow the same format.
Yeah.
Like, if you've seen one, you've seen them all, because you'll meet the bride and she'll say, I really just want a traditional wedding, or a classy wedding, elegant, like all of this stuff, and then she's talking about her husband like, we're so in love, he's so brilliant.
He just knows me so well.
He does have this like really intense love of football. Like every Saturday it's football, but that's his thing. I'm not into it. I do my own thing Saturdays, whatever. And then you meet the husband and he's like, I think we're going to get married on a football pitch.
I think it's happening.
And then the bride sort of has a little hissy fit on the day, but it all turns out well and they all end up loving it.
Yeah, and they all say, this is better than what I would plan. Come on.
Some of them are so horrendously bad. And
The Thorpe Park one.
I was about to say, some people are like, oh, we used to really like riding roller coasters together, so I'm just going to plan my wedding at Thorpe Park. And it's like, why can't you just go to a church? Yeah. Or a hotel, or just a standard wedding? Why does it have to be a theme?
And the groom made her get on a ride in her wedding. Wasn't it stealth?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
We'll put a picture up of what stealth is for people that don't know. But it's not what you want to be going on in a wedding dress with your hair and makeup already done.
Ellen, I would be so livid.
The wedding's not happening.
I mean, I don't like roller coasters, so that would be like, that would just be insult on top of insult on top of insult. But I remember one, she was in her like wedding finery and he made her jump out of a helicopter or a plane, whatever, and parachute down into a muddy field. And she was like, what the actual But then they all do say like, oh, this is better than what I planned. But I don't know if it, by that point you're like, I just got married to him.
Yeah, you're just in the high of it and you're probably really drunk and you're like, it's been great.
I can't say anything now. And then you get home and it's like divorce papers just waiting.
That's an annulment because clearly I never knew you.
You never knew me. Yeah. And what I never understood is, does the bride actually want this? And they spoke about it beforehand. Like, so I'm going to say...
You'd obviously speak about it before.
Yeah,
this is the
because
thing.
I would literally be like, okay, here's a list. We didn't speak about it, but this is exactly what you're going to do. I've even budgeted it out because they get £12,000.
I've even booked it all. Because you can't... Yeah. You can't book these things. They get like 2 weeks. Is it 3 weeks?
3 weeks. And they can't talk to each other in any of that time. So even like the dress, everything. And it's when they go and try the dress on and they're like, oh, I really hate a dress with sleeves. And it just pans like, there's so much foreshadowing. So then it goes to the husband looking at dresses and they obviously have a model trying it on and it's one with obnoxious sleeves and he's like, I love it. She's going to look so beautiful in that. And sometimes they're just standing there because then they get it a couple of days before the dress. So then the bride tries it on and she's just standing there crying and sobbing.
They're always like, oh my God, we didn't get shoes or something like that.
Yeah.
Just see them in shoe zone looking at trainers.
Yes. They have to call because sometimes the bridesmaid will communicate with the groom if he's missed anything and he's like, you forgot to get us shoes, and he's like, I've got 12 quid left in the budget, left to get like 4 shoes. So then he has to go to Shoe Zone and get little pumps. Sometimes the bridesmaid dresses are really awful as well, and it's like, you must thank her friends.
And sometimes they have to pay for their own bridesmaid dress. They're like, oh, we've not got the budget because we had our stag in Ayia Napa whilst you went to bingo.
I remember one, like the whole 12 grand in Vegas or something, like they went gambling with it. And some have it abroad and they go out in like Ibiza and then they're like, we've got to plan a wedding and we've only got 3 grand left. We're going to have to fly everyone out here and then it's only the bride that can come over.
Yeah, or they're literally like, oh, maybe we should have thrown a hen do. We'll just like a table at a restaurant. It's fine.
They just send them a bottle of champagne and they're in their mum's garden.
Oh my god.
Oh my god. Do you remember that hen do that we saw when we were out in so we were out in a really
it was a
skanky
dive
area.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those pubs that's a dive.
But it's great.
It's a fun dive, but
Yeah.
I'm telling you now, if my friends, meaning you, planned my hen do and took me out to this dive in a scummy area, and it's like a bar, but it's like your standard bar you go to on a Friday night. It's nothing special.
No.
And
I wouldn't even... A bar is a stretch. A bar is a stretch.
It's kind of like a pub bar. It has karaoke and a dance floor.
Yeah, but
only
it's
past,
like you cleared the tables in Weatherspoons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there was like no one there at this time either. So
And they
it
were
was
sat
just-
down. They looked miserable.
There was like 6 of them.
If I planned that, which I would not put my name to that. However, we would not be sat down. We would be living it up. We would be having the best time, which we wouldn't be there in the first place, but we would not. I just need to say that now. But we would not be sat there looking like this is the worst day of our lives, because I felt like I needed to just take her and be like, just come with us because you will have a better night. Okay?
We were thinking of that because I remember
Yeah.
I went to the toilet and she was in there having an argument, or someone in the group had an argument with someone else, and the bride was sorting it out. So not only had they brought her to this dive, there was drama on her wedding day. And I don't know if the maid of honour, this is kind of what I created in my mind, this actually didn't happen, but I don't know if the maid of honour, like the day before they had to go out on this hen do, was like looking at her calendar and thought, oh my god, the hen's tomorrow. And I've planned nothing. So she planned it all, got everyone together, got the gals together, obviously they all know the date, and they were all like, oh, where are we going? Like really gassed, thinking it's going to be a really classy evening, and she's like, we're here.
And Russia's like, no, it's a joke.
So I reckon on the bride's behalf, someone was like, mate, you sort your life out. Sort your life out, you're a rubbish friend. And then the bride had to kind of like mitigate it. But that was just what I made up in my head because I felt so bad for this girl.
Honestly.
But those are like the hens on Don't Tell the Bride. I know we went around the houses with that one.
Circling back. At least you know if it was me planning it, you know I would be so stressed. No, I would not forget a thing. I would be thinking about it for
day
months.
and night. There would be some sort of drag in there, I know that much.
Oh, obviously.
We just wouldn't be in a place like that.
No.
And like, I know we're knocking this place and we were in it, but that was a standard Friday night when we just
knew what we were
wanted
getting
to get
into.
messy.
Yeah.
That was nothing to do with the hen do. None of us getting married. Like, I just felt so bad for her and I really wanted to take her under my wing. If that girl is out there and she ever listens to this, you're seen.
I'm sorry. And you are seen.
Drop a comment down below if that is you, because we will take you on a better hen do than you ever had. I'm serious.
What is your... I know we're really on a tangent here, but what is your favourite pickup line that you've ever heard?
Pickup line that I've ever heard? Ooh. What, like, just in life, or that someone said to me?
Just like that you've ever heard, and it doesn't have to be said to you, but just what is your favourite?
I don't really like many of them, to be fair. Or the worst cheesy ones.
Yeah, obviously none of them work.
I don't know. I'm on the spot. Tell me yours, and then I'll think about it.
I love the Tennessee one.
What's that one?
Yeah.
You
from Tennessee. It's only 10 I see. I love it. 0 out of 10. It's never worked and never will. Are your legs sore? Because you've been running around my mind all day.
I was literally about to say that one. I really don't like it. Like, obviously, like, we've all had stints on Tinder. I think it's just good to be open about it. Sorry, the trauma's going back. We've all had stints on dating apps that, obviously, we're probably not proud of. Can't even say it without wanting to vomit in my mouth. And when you get those lines, when they match with you, you're just like, you've copied and pasted this to so many people. When does it work?
It's just when you think, this is rock bottom.
I always think, though, like, it must work, because if you match with 100 girls, someone's got to be replying that you're still doing this to.
No, because why are men still sending phallic images? That's never worked.
Do you know, I never understood it when someone would message me when we first matched. Not even a hey, hello, how are you?
Yeah, just straight up, this is it.
About. No, they would never. I've never got that until we like go on an app, and then they obviously send it unsolicited. But
It's never solicited.
I've just got like, oh, can you send a topless pic? And it's like, when does that? Well, I don't know you. I had some. Oh my god, we're so off talking about time slips, but I feel like this needs to be said to shame the men out there that do this. And I know we've got a mainly female audience, so I know we've got the right people in the room.
Can I get an amen?
So I once had a guy tell me, oh, you've got really long hair, haven't you? And this was when my hair was long. When on the first episode, you'll see how long my hair is. I had a cut. But this was when I had really long hair. And I was like, yeah, I've got really long hair. And he was like, is it thick? And I was like, yeah, I've got quite thick hair. And he was like, it's so beautiful. And I was like, oh, that was quite a long way to give me a compliment, but thank you, I'll lap it up. And he was like, can I tell you something? And I was like, yeah, sure. Like, but you always get nervous when they say that. It's like, yeah, okay. What do you want to tell me? And he was like, but you'll think it's weird. And I was like, go on, you need to tell me now. I already knew at this point it's a dead end and it's over, but you need to tell me now. And he was like, I don't know if we can say this word, but I have a fetish for hair, and I would like it when girls put their hair up in a ponytail and like swish it along my body when I'm naked, like all over his body. That's my favourite pickup line.
And it worked.
I never spoke to him again.
And that's how you met Kieran.
No, do not put Kieran's name to that. He will not appreciate that. Honestly. Bearing in mind, we had this conversation at, I think, about like 10, 11 a.m. in the morning. I just feel like that's more of like a 2 years in sort of thing. To be like, you already love me, so you can't leave now.
You're locked in.
Instead of like after, not even, we haven't met, not even after 24 hours.
You meet up, your hair's in a ponytail, and he's like, oh god.
You know when you turn and your hair like whips, you accidentally whip it, and he's like, oh.
He just leaps like, oh.
But yeah, I just felt like it was, I don't know. I don't even know. It's quite specialist. Yeah.
A once in a lifetime experience, and not in a good way.
Yeah. I feel like this episode is going to be called Time Slip / Don't Tell the Bride / Bad Tinder Experiences. But I have so many bad Tinder experiences, and I'm sure everyone else out there does, and I'm sure everyone can relate to these sorts of things.
Maybe we can do an episode of it if people send enough stories in.
It's not really with the I guess it's kooky.
Some of them are pretty kooky. Okay, and that in turn is spooky.
Yeah, anyway, I think it's your story. Back to the topic at hand on Time Slip. 2 hours later.
Okay, so this is my second time slip story after that subject slip.
Yeah, we slipped in time to a different episode entirely.
And you're back.
1, 2, 3, you're back in the room. Okay.
On the morning of October 1957, something strange happened to 3 15-year-old boys. William Lang, Ray Baker and Michael Crowley were Royal Navy cadets travelling across the Suffolk countryside as part of an orienteering exercise. Their task was to find a particular waypoint and report back to their superiors. As they were approaching their target, an idyllic village called Kersey, the boys became distracted by the sound of church bells and a plume of smoke rising above the hill that they were climbing. They had finally stumbled across the village of Kersey, but as they approached, they began to feel increasingly uneasy. The first thing that they noticed was how, one by one, the sounds of nature that had surrounded them began to fall away. All that was left was the trickle of a nearby stream and the sounds of the church bells. As they entered the outskirts of the village, they saw that the autumnal trees were full and green, as if it was springtime. The cool breeze they'd been walking in was also gone, and they could no longer see the smoking chimneys or the church spire that had drawn them to Kersey in the first place. The streets were deserted with no signs of life. This wouldn't have seemed so strange, as it was a Sunday morning in the rural heart of 50s England after all, but something else struck the boys as odd. There were no cars to be found lining the streets, no telephone wires hanging from the buildings, and no TV aerials on village roofs. There was no sign of modern technology whatsoever. The buildings themselves looked ancient. They were timber framed and had seemingly been built by hand, or as one boy said, almost medieval in appearance. It was then that the boys' strange experience began to turn into something more sinister. Driven by curiosity, the boys approached the building nearest to them, which appeared to be a butcher's shop. One of the boys noted, there were no tables or counters, just 2 or 3 whole oxen carcasses, which had been skinned and in places were quite green with age. There was a green painted door and windows with smallish glass panes, one at the front and one at the side, rather dirty looking. I remember that as we 3 looked through that window in disbelief at the general green and mouldy carcasses, the general feeling certainly was one of disbelief and unreality. With a strong feeling of unease, the boys approached another house. Its windows also had a greenish tint and were very smeared. Once again, they saw no signs of life, and the rooms were completely empty and crudely whitewashed. As they stepped away from the house, all 3 began to feel an icy stare of invisible watchers glaring down on them from all over the abandoned village. The boys had finally had enough and fled from the strange place. As they exited the village, climbing over a small hill, they turned back and could once again see the smoking chimneys and hear the sound of church bells ringing. It was as if nothing had ever happened. Years later, in the 1980s, 2 of the boys, Lang and Crowley, reconnected over the phone and discussed the strange incident. While their recollections didn't match perfectly, the 2 decided to contact Andrew Mackenzie, a leading member of the Society of Psychical Research.
Okay.
That doesn't feel like a word, but that is the word. After listening to the men, Mackenzie came to the conclusion that their trip to Kersey was a case of retrocognition, which is also known as a time slip. In 1990, Lang met with Mackenzie and the 2 men visited Kersey. With the aid of a local historian, they made some surprising connections to the boys' experience and the real history of the village. For example, the strange butcher's shop they had seen had been a butcher's shop as early as 1790, and the building itself dated back to 1350.
Oh.
Mackenzie used the supposed disappearance of the church to date the time slip to before the 14th century, when the village church, St Mary's, was built. He also put the village's eerie abandonment down to the Black Death of the same period.
Oh.
I know.
That's creepy.
It's really creepy.
Okay, so last story of the episode. It's a short story, and the reason why I chose this one was because it's in the New Forest that was by us.
I'm looking forward to it.
It says, Soldiers from the Past, a time slip in the New Forest. Thanks to David Dwyer of the UK for this submission. So this is David's words. My own experience happened in late September 2020, so recent, near the town of Brockenhurst in the New Forest. I had moved to Winchester a couple of weeks previously in order to start a short-term job to keep me going until I got my visa and left the country. It was a nice day, so I looked up a walk in the New Forest using a phone app called New Forest Walks and settled on one spot called Buckland Rings, about a 3 to 4 hour walk. I parked in the railway station car park and set off at a leisurely pace. Enjoying the scenery, the old church, etc., I spoke to a couple of people as I passed them and stopped several times to take photographs. I wanted to get used to using my DSLR camera before emigrating. After a couple of hours, at about 1 PM approximately, I walked off the track, found a tree stump to sit on and eat my packed lunch. After finishing that, I started walking back and took a few more shots. After a while walking, I became aware of some movement in the trees to my left and looked over to see a group of soldiers moving at a jogging pace. I spread over about 50 to 60 metres moving across my path. They were dressed in old-fashioned uniform, khaki, not camouflage, tin hats, some with twigs and small branches carrying old-fashioned rifles, not modern rifles. Prominent at the front, leading them and encouraging them, was a soldier carrying a pistol and blowing a whistle. The group moved across my path. I was aware of some being behind me, but I did not turn around. The noise and sounds of them grew until I fell in the midst of it. But just as quickly, the group moved about 30 metres to the right, the sound went and the group disappeared. I assumed the group was reenactors or similar due to the old-style clothing and rifles, and I made a mental note to find out who they were when I got home. I completed the walk, got in the car and drove home. In the next couple of days, I emailed the New Forest Authority and asked if they could let me know who the group was. They replied that they had no idea and suggested I contacted Brockenhurst College to see if it was the Army cadets, etc. from there. Once again, the response was that they had no idea who it was and it was nothing to do with them. I still have the emails. I left it at that until recently finding out about time slips and have become more intrigued by what I experienced.
That's interesting.
I would feel more unsettled seeing anyone with rifles, whether I thought they were reenacting or not. I'd be like, what's happening? I would think it was World War III. With how paranoid I am, I'd be like, it's happening.
World War III is all buttons.
Yeah, true. And it's interesting that they were in tin hats and khaki and like reenactors. And you would think, I'm sure he did look into this. If he went as far as to email the New Forest Authority...
I would not be doing that.
I don't know who that is.
I'd just accept it was a time slip.
Yeah. But I would assume he looked up on the internet reenactments in the New Forest, because there would be a group, there would be a forum, there would be a discussion, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Or a Facebook group that was linked on Google.
Yeah.
I'm sure there would be something. So the fact that there wasn't, it makes me wonder...
I love that was so recent.
And so close.
There's a place in the UK, in Liverpool, that's really renowned for time slips.
Yeah, I think it came from where Frank is.
Oh, Bold Street.
Yes, that's where it was, yeah. Because a Frank story, the reason I chose that one for the intro was because everywhere I looked it was.
Yeah.
It appeared like 4 times on the same Reddit thread. I was like, okay, I get it. Frank had a time slip. Let it go. Yeah, so that's really renowned. And there's another place that's really renowned, but I can't remember where. I wish I did. Yeah. So there's a few places that are apparently really renowned for it. So I'm thinking, because me and Ellen have talked about this, that sometimes we want to do trips to correlate with an episode.
Yeah.
Tried to do it with the London Underground one and failed miserably because it was just a history of TFL. But we've talked about some other ones. For the Isle of Wight episode, we're awaiting for when we next go to the Isle of Wight, which should be soon. We usually go around our birthdays, but we've got some stuff going on, so we're not going. So unfortunately it's delayed, but it will be coming. We're going to the Isle of Wight on a haunted Isle of Wight tour, and we will sort of document it on the episode. Anyway, I'm thinking now, my mind is spinning. We'll go to the place. We should look up places renowned for time slips.
Are we going to Liverpool?
Well, just any place renowned for time slips. But I just know I'll be standing there like, come on, almost trying to make something happen.
Trying to squeeze a time slip out.
Imagine if we had one though. I feel like even though we've read about it, I would be so shit up.
Yeah, it would really mess me up, to be fair.
If we both had one at the same time and we went back in time, I would just look at you like, Ellen, what's happening? Ellen, what is this?
It's happening! Be that thing when it's like, everyone stay calm!
Michael from the office. We're never going to get back. We need to get home.
Although I know we'd be so gassed to do the episode. We'd just be sat down, grinning like Cheshire Cats, like, guys.
After we get back, the episode would be labelled Our Time Slip, and it would just be us sat there waiting to present it, like...
It's now our personality.
So we went to Liverpool.
When I had my time slip experience.
It would be like the guy who was eaten alive by a snake and wouldn't stop talking
It all comes back to the time slip.
I know, I would be so much on my high horse as well. Like, I just feel like a different person since I had it. It just really put into perspective everything.
I've changed my life, and I guess Time slips just happen to certain people. You've just... I don't know what it is.
I'm prone to it. And I guess I am just that type of person. And I've really changed the way I live because it's just given me so much perspective that time is fleeting. But if you're lucky enough to be in the club, welcome to the club, brother.
It can't happen to us. We're the worst people.
See, this is the thing, even like the alien thing, like we were talking about, it can't happen to me because I would tell everyone and I would be deleted so quickly by the Men in Black. And this also can't happen to me because I'd be on my high horse.
If we suddenly just disappear, you know what?
It's this podcast. We're telling the truth. The truth is out there. They focus in on this tiny pod. That's
like,
such a
not a
small
concern.
audience.
I'd be happy for the view.
My little spy.
Government, if you're watching, give us a like and subscribe.
Oh, they'd probably just roll their eyes and be like, we have bigger fish to fry. Think you can buy microphones and a little camera? Think you're special, do ya? Joke's on you, you didn't even buy a camera. We got a webcam.
Lol.
We already had the webcam. I have heard other commentary channels say that. Hear it, because they're like, some people just buy microphones and think they can do a podcast. Actually take some skill behind it. And I was like, no.
Obviously not.
That's not me. I have the skill.
Don't come for me.
But on that note, I'll go into the Watcher in a second, but just on that note, we are a really small podcast and we do appreciate all the views, likes, subscribes that we get. So if you like the content, please give us a like and subscribe. If you can put up with the tangents and you've got to this point, well done. We will now go into the Watchery without any further ado. And I've got a movie for us today that has nothing to do with time slips, but it's one of my favourite horror movies.
Ooh.
So I watched it on Valentine's Day, because obviously me and Kieran both really like horror films.
Was it the Heart Eyes one?
No.
I want to see that.
Me and Kieran really both like horror films, so we sort of said, we don't want to go out on Valentine's Day when there's loads of people about because we're both massive introverts, so we were like, let's stay in and watch horror films and have a horror night.
Love that.
So that's what we did, and we watched one of my favourite horror films because obviously it's all about me.
It's my Valentine's Day.
So my favourite horror film of all time, which is one of the first, I feel like this is a really long intro, which is one of the first horror films I ever watched. It's Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh, really?
But
that was your favourite.
Have you seen the remake?
No.
So, first one, I like it because it's nostalgic. I like it because when I watch it as an adult, it's silly. When I was a child, I had to drag my mattress, my little single bed mattress, into my brother's room and sleep on his floor because I was so afraid of it. I watched it really, like, this wasn't in my teens. It was when I was very young. So it really made me never want to sleep again. But when I watched it as an adult, it was kind of silly. But then there's a remake in 2010 that has our friend from Smile, Joel the policeman.
Oh, Joel.
Yeah, he's called Quentin in this, but the actor's in it. And he's also in Haunting in Connecticut.
Yeah.
But anyway, the remake, which I don't believe the original film does, but I haven't watched the original film in quite a while, but I don't think the original film ever goes into the reason of why Freddy is in these people's dreams.
And it does in this.
And the remake does.
Ah.
So, for anyone that doesn't know Nightmare on Elm Street, there is a being called Freddy Krueger. He has a burnt face, the well-known red and green striped shirt, and he has claw hand. Alright. Oh, I can't believe I just did that.
I love that.
Oh, I'm literally going to think of that in the
Roar.
shower, like, oh my god. Roar means I love you in dinosaur language. That's my favourite chat line. Back in my emo phase. Okay, so yeah, Freddy's this being that haunts people's dreams, and if he does stuff to you in the dream, it happens in real life. So if he scratches you in the dream, you wake up with cuts. If he M's you, I don't know how to say it, you will end up unalived in real life. Yeah. So these kids start dropping off one by one, and they're all experiencing the same thing and trying to stay awake. But we find out the reason of why he's doing it. We find out that Freddy Krueger was a man who worked at all of these kids' primary school.
Ah, okay.
And he was like the gardener or the caretaker, and he lived in the school in the boiler room, which is quite on brand because Freddy usually takes them down to a boiler room.
Yeah.
So he really liked these kids. And he had a special one, Nancy, who's the main character along with Quint.
When you say really like...
You're thinking the same thing. Yeah. So all of the parents found out what was going on.
Yep.
And the kids told the truth. So Freddy comes back to get revenge on the kids because the parents, as an angry mob...
Like vigilantes.
Yeah, they basically burnt the boiler room down with him inside it and, like, locked him inside it.
Surely that would explode.
I think it did, yeah.
Okay.
It
went off.
Yeah, he was no more. And then when their kids were older and teenagers and in, like, high school, college, wherever they were, he came back to haunt their dreams.
He waited till they were of consenting age.
But it's really weird because there's a couple of, like, things that sort of give you that hint. Like, he tries to, like, lick you, and he gets them in bed and, like, runs his, like, claw up and down them. Like, it's a bit sexualized. And Nancy's in the bath once, and he, like, puts his hand up between her. You can...
The signs are there.
It's odd. But, when they find out about it, because they start doing their research, and our mum's being really cagey about it, and all of the parents kept this secret. None of the kids remembered who Freddy Krueger was. So they started doing their research about it, and they found out all of this stuff from primary school, and their memories started flooding back. And Quint and Nancy actually go visit the school. But when they originally find out, they think he's getting revenge on them because the kids lied. They think that they lied about it.
Why would small children lie about that?
I don't really know how they thought that. They just thought, oh, this is why he's getting revenge on us, because this never happened. We don't remember it. Oh my God, we killed a man.
Well, probably because you'd be like, surely he's not getting revenge for something that he did, and that, because that just doesn't mean, what are you getting revenge for?
Yeah, so I think they just went there. But then Quint and Nancy, because all their friends start dropping off, and one guy actually went to prison because his girlfriend got slashed up in her sleep, and he was the only person there, and obviously the police don't know this man's haunting their dreams, so he went to prison. And the same thing happened to him in prison, and his cellmate is on the, like, CCTV, like, I didn't do it wasn't me. Quint and Nancy are kind of like the last two left. They have a picture of all the people they went to primary school with, and they actually find one guy is doing an online blog. And he's sat in front of his computer like, I'm trying to stay awake. If I go to sleep, I won't make it. There's this guy in my dream called Freddy Krueger. If anyone has any information, please let me know. And then his head hits the screen and he's gone. So they're like, we're the last two left. We need to get to the bottom of this. They go to the preschool and they find some incriminating evidence in the form of pictures of them when they're younger in Freddy's stuff. So they're like, he's not coming for us because we lied. He's coming for us because we told the truth. But when they're on their way to the preschool, Nancy starts, I can't remember what they're called, like micro-napping or something maybe.
Oh, your head goes.
Yeah, and you sort of start dreaming when you're awake because they had stayed up for a long time. And Quint has ADHD, so he's taking, like, Ritalin.
The stuff.
Yeah, he's taking the tablets and it's keeping him up.
Yeah.
And he also stole some adrenaline from the hospital. So he's prepared. And Nancy's like, I don't want any of that. I'm not taking it. So she's starting to dream when she's awake. Quint's starting to have weird dreams when he's awake, when they're on the way to preschool. But anyway, in one of these dreams that Nancy has, she grabs his jumper or something and pulls a bit of the jumper out with her. Oh. And she's like, if I pull him out, he'll in our world.
IRL.
And he can't control that. We're in control if he gets pulled out.
Smarts.
So when they're at the preschool and having this revelation, they make a plan that Nancy's going to fall asleep. Yeah. Quint will wake her up with the adrenaline and she will pull Freddy out. And they do. And they manage to defeat him. So they think, That was a weird experience, and all of our friends are gone, but we survived.
Done and dusted.
So Nancy went home and she's like, oh, I think everything's going to be fine now, Mum. And the mum's just clueless, like, yeah, sound. I'm sorry I didn't tell you more. And then she looks in the mirror and it's Freddie, who's her mum. And then it's
So
ended.
she might be asleep.
You just don't know.
Yeah,
So
I love
it's
that.
ended. It's my favourite. I'm going to give it 10 out of 10.
Wow.
It's literally I think the nostalgic element for me, so this is completely personal, but if you want to see a good horror movie, watch the 2010 version. It is good. But yeah, I know there's Nightmare on Elm Street 1, 2, 3, probably 4, Freddy versus Jason, all of them, but they're kind of the older ones, so I haven't really, I think I've watched the second one, but I haven't watched all of them. But definitely Nightmare on Elm Street #1, the remake, is really good. One. So yeah, that's the watchery this week. A 10 out of 10. Go watch it if you can, if you're interested. I just assume that people who would watch something called Spooky and Kooky would be into horror films or like weird documentaries. So that's why I bring this watchery section in, because I have no life, so I watch a lot of stuff. So it just makes sense that I don't have to put in the effort for this. I just watch it anyway. So then I can just bring it in and talk about it. So I hope everyone enjoys this segment, and I hope that if I give any good recommendations, you'll go watch it.
I enjoy it.
Thank you. I feel validated now. I feel seen. Hope you enjoyed today's video, and we will see you next time.
Thanks for watching. Bye.
See you later.